Okay, welcome everybody to the Survivor Michigan All-Stars casting Q&A podcast. We have reconvened the casting committee from 3 years ago. Everyone's got their Survivor Michigan t-shirts on. Everybody's repping, and we're back to talk all about the casting of All-Stars. So before we get started, I think everyone should introduce themselves. I feel like that would be easiest. I'll start. I'm Ian. If you don't know me, I'm the editor for All Stars and seasons 2, 3, and 4. Originally, I was friends with Cooper, and I was Cooper's roommate for a number of years, and still am actually. And so that's how I got involved in all of this. And I'm now way deep down the rabbit hole and on my 4th season of editing and my final one, God willing. So, yeah.
God willing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I was a producer for seasons 2 through 5. I also was best friends with Leia and Cooper while they played season 1. I lived with Leia. So I've kind of been around for a while and well-versed in production and casting for this season.
So hopefully I don't need to introduce myself to a lot of people if they've seen me on season 1 and season 4. I'm Matthew, and I was not a contestant on All Stars, not the cat's out of the bag. I was a senior during season 4, and then I did a 1-year master's during season 5. But I made the strategic decision that I would probably have a better chance in a returning season than in an All Star season. So I made the decision to join the All Stars production team, the casting team. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here to give you the lowdown on what went down all those years ago and talk about the All-Stars cast.
I'm Brady. I played in season 3. As you guys know from my horrendously embarrassing host reveal video, I'm the host of All-Stars. I was thinking about All-Stars, decided I didn't really want to play, didn't want to deal with the stress of Survivor and an engineering schedule, and thought it would be kind of fun and cool to be host for All-Stars and maybe more seasons. Who knows? We'll see in the future. But so, yeah, that's why I decided I didn't want to play, and obviously now I'm your host. So yeah.
And I'm Chloe. I also played on season 3, and then I produced seasons 4 and many following, including 5. I did not really want to play All-Stars for a few reasons, but the main one was that I fully expected it to be an emotional train wreck for everyone involved. I'm going to sound like a reality show host, but it's literally the most dramatic season ever. People cry every week, and it was a mess. And I knew that was going to happen, and I didn't want to be part of that emotional train wreck. So I opted out and decided to produce. So I really just like producing a lot, and I wanted to do challenges and stuff. So I thought that would be more fun and less of a mess. And I was correct. So happy to have made that choice.
So we got a lot of questions about how this all first got started. Like, how far back were we planning All-Stars? And I'm pretty sure that as soon as season 2, we knew that season 5 was going to be All-Stars, right? Like, even during season 2, people were already talking about season 5 being All-Stars. As far as I can remember, that was just always the plan.
Yeah, I would say even we knew there was going to be an All-Star season, as far back as season 1. As soon as I got voted out, Cooper got voted out, I was like, oh, we're coming back for All-Stars. And that was, Cooper mentions this too in his application video, one of the reasons, because George didn't produce season 2. He wasn't sure if we wanted to keep it going, or he wasn't sure if he wanted to keep it going for season 2. But me, Cooper, a few other people, Sarah Gallagher, were like, no, we definitely got to keep this going for season 2. A lot of the motivation behind that was because, Cooper wanted to play in the All-Star season and I wanted to play again. So that's why we kept the club going. So yeah, the notion that there was going to be an All-Star season existed from basically day 1 of season 1, essentially.
Yeah, and I think timing wise, it just worked out that season 1 was in the fall semester. We've wrapped up season 2 at the end of a lot of people's school year. And since Cooper was the new host, timing wise, it just made sense to wait another year, wait a couple more seasons until his senior year. Since, again, like Matthew said, a driving force was for Cooper and other people from season 1 to play.
After season 4 ended, we decided we needed a new host. Obviously, Cooper couldn't host and play. That would be ridiculous. And so we had a whole hosting application process. You could not, from what I remember, you couldn't be involved in the selection of the host if you were planning to play on All Stars. So at that point, people were already kind of
was involved.
Except, yeah, Cooper.
Cooper was involved.
Yeah, Cooper. I think
He was a
George. I
previous
think
host.
George was involved too. From what
He
I
was.
George was on the casting committee, was people who were going to be on production for All Stars and the former hosts, which at that point were two of them. So
Yeah. So Brady applied to be host, and so did Richard, Austin, and Shannon, actually, the recent winner of the fan favorite poll. So I actually wasn't around for the hosting process. So do you guys want to talk a little bit how that went? Because I was not there for it.
Basically, we had everyone who wanted to apply submit a video of them doing a few different tasks in terms of, commenting on a challenge, setting up some tribal questions, and really just taking a moment to explain why they should be hosts, why they want to be hosts, and why they think they would make a good host. And a lot of the criteria we were looking at was their ability to speak clearly, be engaging. And yeah, I'll let Matthew and Chloe add anything else.
I can go. Yeah, that's the main gist of like the structure for it. In terms of how the actual decision happened, we all basically wrote down our thoughts on all of their videos and such, and then had a very long discourse just trying to decide who was the best option. It ended up being very close between Brady and Shannon. It was like 5 votes versus 6 votes. So what it really came down to was they were both really great candidates. They were all great candidates, but Brady and Shannon especially have like a great screen presence, very funny, easily able to come up with things to say. So we knew that that was already going to be great. And then I think the reason that it ended up being Brady was more of like a timing thing, because we knew that he had already been on production. Shannon had just come off of season 4, so she didn't have any production experience yet. So we weren't sure what that would look like. And then also Shannon at the time was on the women's hockey team, which is very time consuming. And we know that the host needs to be like at every challenge, have a very easy schedule that's like flexible, and be able to put a lot of time into everything. So I think that was the primary reason that like swayed it in either direction, but they were both awesome candidates.
Yeah, and then ultimately Shannon ended up not applying to play on All Stars. Shannon was I don't think she really wanted to play again after her experience on season 4, and she was interested in hosting, but ended up helping out on production and stuff. And just was, I think she didn't necessarily really want to have like a super central role necessarily in Survivor after just kind of being burned out a little bit from season 4. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. Especially given how far she made it, how emotionally taxing it was on her versus some of the other season 4 people who are on the cast didn't have as much, probably as much emotional drain from the season as she would have. So definitely a smart decision on her part to take a step back for it for a bit.
I didn't get emotionally destroyed and said, hey, let's do it again.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. There was definitely, as Chloe said, like the knowledge that All Stars was going to be significantly more emotional than the previous seasons. And some of the previous seasons had already been pretty emotional. So that was a contributing factor to a lot of things, I'd say. The season 4 returnees were cast basically with All Stars in mind. Like it was people who we thought for one reason or another weren't going to be around. So like originally, Matthew, you didn't think you were going to be around, right?
Yeah, I think it was sort of happening at the same time that I figured I was doing my master's program, and that we were sort of figuring out like I need to make a decision on season 4. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I asked Cooper, I was like, do you think I would have a better shot in All Stars or like in season 4? And he's like, yeah, probably season 4. So I probably would have been, I might have been an early boot of All Stars, or I might have won, like I don't know. I definitely could have won. Yeah, who knows? But yeah, so I was like, I kind of knew I was probably going to be around. But I made the decision to do season 4. And then, like you mentioned, Eliza, Jack, and Ben, or Eliza and Jack were seniors, so they were graduated, so they weren't going to have another chance. And I think Ben had like a musical theater commitment or some like a play or a show or something like that. That was going to be in the fall. Yeah.
Ben was going to be studying abroad the next year.
Oh, okay. That's what it was then. Okay.
Yeah, which actually, funny enough, though, ended up not happening because then Ben joined production for All Stars. But
exactly.
Yeah, but originally he was going to be abroad. When I got brought on midway through the summer, when the hosting decision had already been made, and then I was editing season 2, and I was texting somebody, and I was like, yo, like, what's the filming plan for All Stars? And someone was like, there is none. I was like, well, why don't you add me to that group chat there, and we'll get this show on the road. So interestingly enough, All Stars, when we started filming it, there was still a decent amount of season 2 left to edit and all of seasons 3 and 4. So all 3 of those seasons, but especially seasons 3 and 4, have like foreshadowing and like hints and stuff in them about stuff that happens in All Stars. So I don't know. I'd highly recommend going back, maybe doing some rewatching in preparation. Obviously,
Take some notes. Yeah.
Take some notes. Yeah. Obviously, like the Megan and Jackson stuff in season 4 is like an obvious example. If you know they end up dating, all of that has a lot more. It has a totally different context to it, and I would definitely recommend watching those scenes. But there's other stuff that will reveal itself in time for sure, and you'll be like, "Wow, there it was all along, right in my face."
It's one whole grand plan for Ian. You know, he plans out seasons 2 through 5 on his whiteboard, and he knows exactly what's going to happen. So
let's get into the actual casting. So let's talk first about the people who were just not available. Like right off the bat, we're gonna try and run down pretty much everybody if we can, to like explain what happened to them. But pretty much, a lot of the biggest names of people had already graduated. Liz, Thal, Tarowski, Mitch, Brittany, Sarah X, Maggie. Who else? Who else was just gone? Eliza, Dale, Ivy. A lot of season 4 actually.
4 was gone.
Most of season 1 and 2.
Yeah, so let's just go through season 1 we'll go through each season real quick. Most of these aren't gonna take that long. Jonathan, was he still around? I actually don't know anything.
No, I think he had graduated.
No.
So he had graduated. Shay was still around, but she wasn't interested really. She was never super into it. Nikhil had graduated. Jess had graduated. Lavana we'll get to. So Lavana, we'll get to Lavana. Yeah, we'll skip over her for now. With Lavana, there's always a story. Cam graduated. Kara graduated. Angela was still around, right, Matthew?
I believe so. She was a sophomore during season 1, I think. Either a sophomore or junior. So yeah, but she didn't express interest in playing All Stars. So
Angela and Shay were like those two people that like we would like text in your chat like just saw them in a dining hall. They exist. Like never otherwise.
And then Liz graduated, Thal graduated, Brittany graduated, Mitch graduated, and Tarowski all graduated. So pretty much most of season 1 had just already graduated right off the bat.
We would have loved to pay to have them come back and offer them a job as a player on All Stars, but it wasn't in the budget. So
season 2, Noah. So I was thinking about this. I feel like he could have applied. He didn't, but
yes,
he was around. He actually came to the season 2 viewing party for the season 2 premiere. So he was definitely on campus and around, but I don't think he was interested.
Do you think if he had applied, would he have been someone who would have maybe had a chance? You think?
It's interesting because I think something you mentioned in your notes, Ian, is the viability of how many first boots are we really going to cast on an all-star season. And so I think it definitely would have been a discussion because it was a discussion and he would have been part of that. I personally don't know if I would have cast him. Does anyone else feel differently?
I think he would have had he would have been a long shot. We'll say that, but he would have had a shot.
Yeah.
I think a season 2 player who would have had more of a shot is Daniel, who was also still around but didn't apply, kind of fell out of the community sort of after season 2. I think Daniel was super robbed in season 2, and I think he could have been a really interesting character. I would have been interested in bringing him back.
Him and Kevin would have been interesting. I think Kevin was going to be on.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
Came up in a few confessionals.
Yeah, the Daniel blindside was like, everybody just knew that as Kevin's like big thing. So certainly he definitely was relevant, even if he didn't make a physical appearance. Further on in season 2, Jeremy graduated, AJ graduated, but AJ would definitely not have been cast. Sarah Avery, she was still around, didn't apply, wasn't super interested. Also somebody who I think was kind of burned out of it the first time and like didn't really want to do it again. But
she's such a sweetheart that like throwing her in the All-Star season, like I feel like it should have been like a bad combination. Like I love Sarah Avery to death, but like not her environment.
I would have wanted to cast her if she had applied as another one. I feel like
I think she definitely would have been a strong consideration.
Chidi graduated, but Chidi probably would not have been cast. I don't think. Abby. So we'll also skip over to Abby because Abby did apply for All Stars as one of the people who applied but did not get on. So we'll talk about her when we get to the actual casting. Maggie graduated, Jack graduated, Mike graduated, Sarah X graduated, and Mallory graduated.
Yeah.
Season 3, Richard applied for host, did not get it. Applied for All Stars, did not get it. So we'll talk about him also later. He was definitely in contention. Nicholas, he did not apply, but a funny story. If Nick had been on All Stars, all of Tormenta would have played twice.
I didn't even notice.
He would have had a long shot.
Really?
Too. Yeah.
Wrong trend.
Do you guys, season 3 people, you think you would have cast Nick?
Yeah, I love him. He's hilarious.
I think it would have been interesting. I think the thing holding him back is like he didn't really like know anyone or make any connections. I think he would have been such an easy first boot. But like as a character, like I had like a class with him like 2 years later, and he like was like, we're best friends. We played Survivor together. I was like, I never talked to you, but okay. Like character, love him, definitely would have been in consideration. But
yeah. Emily L didn't apply.
No.
Sarah Minnis did apply. So we'll get to her also. In general, I think that there was a much stronger, the casting pool for girls was stronger than the casting pool for guys of like who had applied, at least from my memory.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure we'll get to, but I think it was harder on the girls' side in terms of trying to figure out number and how to split everything up evenly. It definitely made it difficult.
Yeah. Chloe, we talked about you. Ben, season 4, joined production. He was actually on this casting committee and he couldn't make this Zoom call, but he did send in a voicemail that we'll play later. So you'll get
part 2.
You'll get a little Ben in. Eliza graduated. Austin was also on production, was also on the casting committee. He couldn't make this meeting either. He was more interested in just doing production again. I think that just interested him more than playing. Does that seem fair to you guys?
Yep.
Brady wanted to host. Cassie didn't apply. I don't really think Cassie would have been cast, but maybe.
Probably not.
It definitely would have made the girl pool even more difficult, but knowing what her scheduling looked like during season 3, I think we would have leaned towards no.
Very tough.
Yeah.
Devin, this one I think is slightly controversial because it seems like some people don't think he would have been cast if he had applied, but I think maybe I would have pushed for him.
I think he would have had a shot, although it's hard to say like who he would have been cast in place of because we did get like a really strong cast. So it's hard to think who would I take off in place of Devin, but he would have been in strong consideration.
He got second. Like how can you not cast him?
Yeah, I think it like if he were in discussion, I think it still would have come down to how much time he put in and how much he stuck around or showed face, because especially with a lot of the other guys, there were some pretty easy locks. So like Matthew said, it would have been difficult to figure out who to replace Devin with or vice versa.
All right, on to season 4. Erin Murphy did not apply. And I can't see a scenario where she would have been cast. Camila, this is the big one. Camila did apply. We will get to Camila also later on. So keep listening if you want the Camila juicy gossip. Katie, Matthew, you explain this one. I don't know what the deal is with this.
She thought she had applied and like it didn't go through or something, and then so she kind of applied late. So we like didn't have her like in our initial conversations. And then when she did apply, like it was a good application, but it was like we said, it was sort of late and we sort of like already had like a rough cast and she was considered. It just sort of, that didn't work in her favor. And then, we did consider her eventually she didn't make it on, but that also kind of worked against her, is that her application kind of came in late. I think she thought she had submitted it, just didn't come through or something. So
my memory was that like it was so late that like the cast had pretty much already been decided. And then it was like, are we going to boot off somebody who we've sort of already like decided on?
It was definitely after interviews at the very least.
Yeah.
Because I don't even remember really discussing
I think she got an
her at
interview
the
stuff.
casting meeting either. So
yeah, it's a bummer. I would have loved to see Katie play again. I think she was a really interesting character on season 4. So Ivy graduated. Nate did not apply, wasn't interested at all, but I would have loved to see Nate back. I think that would have been amazing.
Always. Bring Nate back anytime, any day.
Yeah, because he's like best friends with Bree, so that would have been really interesting, I feel like. Kat did apply, but it was like a joke application. And here's my hot
I
take I'm
hate
going to come
this.
out with is we should have cast Kat. This is my hot take. Her entire application. I'm going to read it. I have it right here. I have a few of the answers right now.
Read the whole
Because there's
thing.
It was
not the whole thing,
terrible.
not the whole thing, but just a few of them because they're funny. So for the question of where would Survivor be in terms of your priorities, she said below watching paint dry and watching grass grow.
Scheduling
said
would have
how-
been a little tough then. Yeah.
How would you describe your relationship with Survivor Michigan? Not a fan. Oh yeah, she said, what do you think was your biggest mistake and your biggest accomplishment your season? So my biggest accomplishment, my biggest accomplishment was not ripping all my hair out during the game. My biggest mistake was somehow making it to the final three.
Yeah, Kat would have been a good
Auto lock right there.
So it was all
Would've
just
been
her
a
saying,
good,
don't
like,
cast me.
antithesis to everybody else, like a real strategic love the game, and then you just have Kat, and that would have been like hard for them to deal with somebody who just doesn't care. So
And she's just, she probably would have been voted out like first, honestly. But
I mean,
Well, like I think if Kat ended up on a tribe somehow,
she probably would have quit before
everyone
getting
for the
voted
first
out.
challenge would agree that tribe needed to go to tribal and vote her out.
But then they probably would have flipped it, and somebody would have tried to use her as a number.
I know,
like,
and then someone
yeah.
would try to pull something because it's all stars, and yeah.
But she's so fun.
Chaos.
She's so funny, honestly.
Yeah.
The fact that she sent in a video asking not to be cast is just too much for me. And then Shannon, we talked about Shannon. She did not ultimately really want to play, and Dale had graduated. So that's everybody who could have potentially been in the mix. Now let's get into the actual, casting of it. So who do you guys remember like was just locks, like right off the bat, basically?
I mean, Cooper, hands down.
Cooper.
I think honestly, and I could be a little biased, but a lot of season 2 people seemed like locks for me.
Yeah.
Like Bree, Sam, Lucy, Kevin, Bailey,
Nick.
like Nick. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know if that's also proportionate to the percentage of season 2 people who actually applied versus number of people from other seasons, but it definitely felt like all of them put in a lot of effort and like desperately wanted to be on. So that's, always a hands down, like, oh, okay, sounds good.
We did, yeah. And I was just gonna say, like, to speak to those locks, we actually did, like, when people applied, we sort of voted on whether we wanted to interview them or not, because there are some people where we thought like an interview is pointless, they're definitely gonna get on. So I think most of the people you mentioned were unanimous don't interview votes, which means we definitely want to cast them. So yeah, I think that speaks to the people who we kind of knew were locks, who had expressed interest for years and who we knew were kind of really, ready to be on it, and we agreed they should be on it. So
Yep.
Mhm.
Crouch was also a lock. I think
Oh,
we all
yeah.
thought he definitely
Oh
did
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, after being rocked out in season 3, he deserved it. Deserved being let on All Stars, not the Rocks. That was an easy lock for everyone.
Crouch is gonna hate this, but Crouch getting rocked out to me, I think it's perfect storytelling because for me it's
it
it
gives
makes
him the perfect arc for this.
it makes
yeah.
All Stars Crouch just even more fun because he has such a chip on his shoulder.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I agree with like what everyone said. I think like season 1 people like Akshay and Cooper, like
Yeah.
we had two all season 1.
Leia.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
just immediately in. Season 2 people, very similar thing where so many people had so many good arcs that like applied again, like Nick, Sam. Then season 3 I feel like was more of like a clusterfuck where like all of us were young and everyone applied and we were just like shit. We can't cast like 14 season 3 people.
Yeah, a lot of people from season 3 applied, but like some people in season 3 it was like Aaron
Was a lock.
Aaron was always
Aaron
in.
was for sure. Yeah.
Will, I don't remember there being much debate about Will.
Well, and even Emily P, I know there might have been some debate, but it felt pretty confident that like
She was in.
Yeah, she was in too.
Yeah. You just knew there was going to be fireworks between.
Oh yeah.
Just
If
all the
you're
season
casting
3
Aaron,
people.
cast Emily P, get that drama.
The season 3 never ended is the thing. So to this
Not
day,
at all.
it's still going on. So you just knew that All Stars was going to be good because all the season 3 people just couldn't fucking stand each other. And it was going to be great to see them have to play again together.
But it's literally like season 3 is still going up and down. We're like, we're best friends with this person, we're enemies. Like we're best, like it's been happening for like 3 years now.
There are so many vendettas to this day. They're all around season 3. I
We're
don't
best
know.
friends for There's just, it's like, so it's epic.
There was something in the water that season. I don't know what it was.
And I would almost say too that, especially because season 3 was such a dramatic season, like even looking at a lot of the season 1 people who were producers for that season, it was interesting to think about, okay, Will, Aaron, Emily P, like how did they interact with the producers, because that's who they're going to be playing against this time. So that definitely played a factor into whether they were locks or not too, I think.
I remember there was some like slight consternation about Leia because she like at first refused to apply because she said I'm so good that like why would I need to apply for this? They should be asking me to like they should be like reaching out to me.
I could speak on this a little bit as her roommate at the time. Trying to get her to submit an actual application video was like pulling teeth. Because she just felt like it was ridiculous and she should have deserved a spot no matter what. There was no decision that needed to be made. It was already made, kind of thing. So I think there was one, I was laying in my bed and she came in and I was like, Leia, it's the day of the deadline. You just need to film something. I pull out my phone and she's like, all right, why should I be cast? Because I'm the best or something like that. And it was like 2 seconds, like nothing. So, and I think that kind of rubbed some people the wrong way, potentially. Like, we want everyone to really try and show us why they want to be on this. And for Leia, you know, it was just a different attitude in her head. But I think plenty of the viewers, and at this point also, we would agree that Leia was definitely a lock for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like that juxtaposed with like Cooper, especially because they were so close, and like similar stories. Like Cooper, literally, like we put like a 3-minute like limit on the video. Cooper's like 2 minutes 59 seconds, like explaining everything. Great video, well edited. Like his app was like paragraphs of reasoning, and then there's just Leia who is like, "Why do you want to be on?" Because I should.
Oh, Jackson. Also, I don't remember there being any real debate about Jackson, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he interviewed. His votes were 7 don't interview, 3 yes interview. So he was a lock, all things considered. So
I know it seems he was a somewhat polarizing character on season 4, but that's you have to have that guy.
In a good way. Yeah. He was entertaining.
Yeah.
I remember this beef because like we did interview Megan, and Megan was really pissed because she was like, "You didn't interview Jackson." You didn't interview my boyfriend. That's the first thing you said to interview.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So yeah, you'll notice I guess Jackson was locked from season 4, but less locks from season 4 than anywhere else. And I think maybe now's a good time to address the sort of season 4 conundrum, let's call it. Like I was very disattached to season 4 in general. Like I was kind of busy with other stuff that semester. But I think it's not a secret. There was sort of production beef with cast, and basically until season 4 came out this year, it was just always seen by everyone in Survivor Michigan as like the really bad season. And like, oh, it was just really boring and Tokidoki steamrolled and nothing happened. And the whole time production was beefing with cast and beefing with each other.
Yeah, I was abroad, even though I helped to cast season 4, I was abroad during all of production. So I had nothing but what was in the producer chats to go off of.
Conflict was in the producer
and
chat.
It was a lot of conflict. It was a lot of like, what is going on? So I think it's also helpful for anyone who's watching this podcast to kind of, you know, obviously it's easy for us to look back after all of these seasons have aired and see how the viewers view a lot of different characters, but at the time of casting and us as college students, there was a lot of other factors and different mindsets going into it. But I also think with season 4, there were a lot less people who stuck around. And I mean, Ian, you already listed the number of people who had graduated from it. But I think that was also a part of the fewer number of season 4 people applying or even being in discussion for locks, because we just didn't know them as well. You know, they're just coming off of their season. They didn't have an opportunity to be on production. So that was kind of where they were on the fence a little more.
Although I will say, in terms of, there were 12 newbies in season 4 and 4 of them got cast. So a third of the like eligible population, which is the same as season 2 had 18 people and 6 got cast. So basically the same amount just seemed smaller because it was a smaller season and 4 returnees. So yeah, there wasn't like a season 4 bias, but there was like, behind the scenes stuff. But I don't think it actually really played into casting too much. But
That's
I
a
think-
good point.
I think it's more just like a general sort of like the vibes about
yeah,
season. Like I think
season, 1, 2, and 3 were a lot closer because season 4 just happened and there was some conflict with production or whatever. So season 4 was kind of seen as like the other season for a little bit. But
I think it's fair to say that season 4 people probably had like a bit of a disadvantage going into the casting process.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Just for that reason, because they, again, like it's a college club. Ultimately, it's not professional. We make mistakes and stuff, and I think ultimately part of the casting is everybody's friends with each other, and the season 4 people are less good friends with everybody, so there's less of an emotional, like, you're not going to hurt your friend as much by not casting them if it's somebody from season 4 because you're not as good friends with them. I think that definitely played a part, probably.
Yeah.
I could see that.
All right. So originally it was meant, people were asking about this. Originally it was supposed to be 20 people, 10 girls and 10 guys, because we wanted it to be even originally. So let's start talking about like how that was. The guys were easier to figure out. The first 8 guys are basically locks, and it was between Adam, Richard, Tom, and Dylan for the last 2 spots, essentially. So does anyone remember sort of what we were discussing with those 4, the different things? There was a lot of conversation about Dylan being a winner and whether or not we wanted that.
Yeah, I think that was the main thing against Dylan. Otherwise, like I think no one disliked Dylan, didn't want him on, but it was just like, is it weird just to have one winner? And in like such an intense season, would people just pick him out really quickly? And like, it wouldn't kind of be, I don't know, fair to a lot of people who want a second chance versus the person who actually won. So that was like kind of the Dylan thing. And then it was just Tom's a character. Like we knew,
Love Tom.
you saw Tom play, not that good, but he's entertaining as hell. And then
Yeah, I think the biggest, exactly what Brady said, like any con against Dylan was just the fact that he was a winner, but also with Tom, in my view, the only pro for him was because he was an entertaining person and like kind of no other reason. And then with, who were the other 2? Adam and Richard?
Adam and Richard, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And Adam, I guess, same sort of situation, like just wanted to give him another chance, even though he didn't do a whole lot, like very well on season 4.
So Adam, like I think I was the only one to interview him, and like his like story from his interview, like he showed so much growth already from like, it was literally like 3 months ago, and he literally seemed like an entirely different person and was like, I've grown, I'm here, like I know what I'm doing now, I'm ready. Like, and I think a lot of it was seen was like, oh, this is not Adam that we saw from like season 4. This is like a whole new Adam. And so then
I think there was, I was just gonna say there was a non-canon season of Survivor Michigan 4.5, and Adam did that. Adam and Tom did that over the summer, and Adam went pretty far. And I think that's sort of like, I knew I kind of wanted Adam on the cast, and then like he did well in that game. He made a lot of connections. I was like, oh yeah, Adam's definitely got what it takes. Tom in that season, he played on the online 4.5 season. He was a mess. He tried to blackmail me. All that sort of stuff. He tried to say, if Matthew doesn't give me a name by whatever time, I'm gonna get my whole tribe to put Matthew out.
The Poachers Alliance, where we poached the lion, I recall.
I beat him in the duel, whatever. I mean, it was years ago. I don't even remember exactly what happened.
Of course not. Of course not.
I mean, I just remember I beat him in a
Yeah.
duel. That's all I remember. But then I was out the next week, I think. So yeah, they kind of boosted their stock because of this like online game, and that sort of just spoke to like their willingness to kind of like be a part of the community, like their interest in just like Survivor in general kind of made their stock rise for All Stars. So
Tom wrote a 4-page essay about why he should be on. Like
so much.
As far as I could tell, Tom put more
he
into
redacted some of it. He sent something that was redacted. I don't know why.
He put more into the application than anybody. Like Tom, Tom filmed somewhere in the range of like 10 to 15 hours of footage over the summer before the game even started. Like the man was on a different level. Like it was crazy. So you almost couldn't not cast that person who cares that much and wants it that bad. And you're like, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this time he'll have some tricks up his sleeve,
Yeah.
He submitted, he had his own folder. He submitted 3 documents: Tom's case for All Stars, All Stars pregame strategies, and Emma Marcus, Curie, Shannon, which was something about how Shannon was a great player. So he submitted plenty of material.
I remember every video he uploaded was like him like in the dark, like from
In a corner.
staring at it. Like it's not even with people. It's just Tom like sitting there and like just talking shit. It was great.
Yeah. So I think after realizing all of that, especially between both Adam and Tom and both of them, I mean, with the locks that we already had, there was only one season 4 guy. So I think that also played a part. Like clearly they were both extremely devoted. I'm not sure. Do we have any notes on Richard in that case? I'm trying to remember.
For me, the thing with Richard was there was already so many season 3 people. And
yeah,
again, like Sarah Gallagher was probably going to get on. It didn't necessarily feel right to have multiple first boots on All Stars. I already was kind of uncomfortable with doing one. At least that was my thing. Richard was also really young, and I remember thinking like there's definitely going to be more opportunities potentially for those people. That was definitely part of it for some of the people who didn't get cast. It was like, this is not necessarily the end for them, you know?
Yeah, like they have more time because I guess that's true. He was a freshman during season 3. He would have been a sophomore.
Yeah.
At this point. Yeah.
Potentially 3 more seasons when he could maybe come back.
So I think that's where we landed on the guys. I guess it came down to if we had to pick 10, it was Adam and Tom.
Yeah. So to be clear, at this point, Dylan and Richard were out, but obviously eventually Dylan got on. So we'll get into explaining that in a little bit. The girls was a lot more difficult. Because, okay, let's just start with Sarah Gallagher, because I guess that's somebody who was really surprising, but she was basically a lock from my memory, right?
I think one of the things too that helped her case was just sort of the fact that none of the All-Stars people knew that she was going to be on. Everybody, like, you know, they kind of had an idea of who was going to be on. They talked to people, they know who's applying. Nobody knew that Sarah was applying. So that was something that worked in her favor was like, she'll be a great cast. And also she's kind of going to throw a wrench in some people's plans when they're like, I thought I had the whole cast figured out, but now I don't, you know. And it was also somebody who hasn't been around these people for years, you know, there's not like friends. So it's sort of like it's throwing a newbie, you know, into a cast of All-Stars sort of. So that was another big plus.
In addition to that, she did she helped with production for season 2. She played some of the summer online games with a few of us, and we knew she and Emily P were really close from Survivor Buffalo. So we saw that she was extremely dedicated, loved the game, and clearly like really wanted to get on. I think that also helped a lot in her case.
And I think it was a good mixture too, because like people like Matthew and Katie like obviously knew her and like had a good relationship with her and like understood her, but like some people like me and Chloe had never met her and then like just saw her application and still loved her just as much.
That's a good one.
Application. So then everyone kind of loved her and we were like, oh, cool, season 1 person, she seems dope, why not?
Yeah, people had also been pre-gaming for like literally years, and we didn't want it to be like set in stone before the game started. We wanted twists to happen and things to change that people had not planned for. It's like Matthew said, her throwing a wrench in things is like so ideal. So we just wanted to mix things up so that it wasn't so like set in stone before the game even happened.
Yeah, from an editing standpoint, I remember thinking it'd be really poetic to have the first ever person voted out comes back. There's just something really like wholesome and nice about that, of giving that person another chance, the person who never got a chance, you know? Plus, you know, Cooper and I was like, it's gonna be fireworks. Like Cooper and Akshay voted her out the first time.
Yeah.
Like, how's that good? This could be great. It's gonna be great. Megan. So this is also probably gonna be controversial to people who watch season 4. Megan was very much up in the air on whether or not she would be cast. I think a lot of people in Survivor Michigan really underestimate her and like did not realize she was going to be like a gigantic fan favorite, and how she's like really sweet, but kind of a schemer also. And it sort of makes it amazing. So, and then obviously the big thing is her and Jackson dating. So do people have thoughts about that, you know?
Megan's interview was really strong. Like, I remember in her interview, she referred to herself as Jesus, and she was like, everyone thinks I'm Jesus. I'm just so pure and nice and cute, but I can be mean Jesus. Like, I can like stab everyone in the back. And we're like, okay. And she had so many schemes in mind. And we were like, this is great. She seems so pure and innocent. And then she has all these things that are just suddenly coming to fruition that are like very schemy and dark.
This is obviously going to be a major storyline on the show, but Megan and Jackson we didn't know they were dating until they applied for All Stars because everyone thought they had broken up. And so they had been lying.
Mhm.
They had once they realized they were going to apply for All Stars, they pretended to break up and then lied to everybody for months and months. And everyone thought they had broken up. So the only people who knew they got back together was the production when they had told us. So it was like this, we have to see how this plays out. Like this is you can't even write shit like this.
And do you remember Megan also made up a full different story about like Oscar or Ricardo?
Yes.
Oscar.
Boyfriend that she would tell people about so they wouldn't think she was dating. Like the whole story. And then I just remember her interview, like she just has like those like piercing like green or blue eyes that are just here and she doesn't blink. And you're just like, oh, like you're terrified. And we need to cast her.
Let's talk about Emily B, who ends up getting cast, Abby and Sarah Minnis were kind of the, from what I remember,
and Camila,
sort of, and Camila, right? We're all sort of in the mix together. Jessie as well. There was a whole kind of group of girls that was kind of,
oh my gosh,
it was really contentious over what's going to happen here. So I don't know where to start, but wherever people want to.
I mean, just to sort of give some context, like we went through a lot of votes. Like we're looking at the spreadsheet, like it says votes, revote, re-revote, re-revote, final vote, and then another vote. So we went through a lot of different stages of, everybody has 2 votes, or you can only vote for 2 people this time. Like we went through a lot of different rounds of voting to figure out how we were going to fill these last few spots. So yeah, it ended up being Emily B, and I think of those
Jessie.
people who are fighting,
Jessie.
Because
I
think
we're really fighting for that spot.
If it's just those last 2 spots.
So at this point, Lavana was in at this point, basically, from what I remember.
So there was a big context on Lavana, just so we can get it out of the way and sort of explain how we ended up.
This is sort of Lavana and Camila. Basically, there was a real push that a lot of people on the production committee and stuff wanted people who really cared about Survivor, and like had really been invested in the club and all of this. Lavana obviously didn't give 2 shits about the club, anything like that. And in fact, in her application, she said she had played on season 3. So like, I don't know if she actually thought that or what, but like, it was very clear she obviously didn't really care about Survivor and stuff. But me and Ben in particular were fighting really hard for Lavana and Camila.
Also was because at least in that sense, we didn't really, at least Ian, you and I didn't know Camila, but we knew Lavana.
Right.
And we were like, oh, we want Lavana as a character. We want her. Yeah.
It's because I had been editing season 2 at this point, and the funniest part about this, right? So what happened was, it sort of at one point was that Camila and Lavana were sort of fighting for the same spot. It was like seen that they were sort of similar-ish characters, I guess, or somehow that became at one point what was happening. And I remember that then we were all like, well, it should be Lavana because she's the giant fan favorite from season 1. And like, people would be so angry if we didn't cast Lavana, Then Lavana got cast and ended up not wanting to do it after she had been cast. So in retrospect, now it's kind of hilarious because Camila is this giant fan favorite from season 4. And if we had known everything that was going to happen, we probably would have just cast Camila instead of Lavana,
Yeah. But I think, and obviously hindsight's always 2020, but Camila was also younger. Like if we are putting it back in the perspective of, we were also deciding Camila against Jessie, Emily B, Abby, Sarah Minnis. Camila was the youngest of all of them. So there was another part of that discussion where she may have more time to play again later on versus some of these other people. And yeah, again, like Ian said, there was a lot of back and forth, or as Matthew said, there was a lot of back and forth, but
it was heated.
Unfortunately, we put all our chips on Lavana and then she dropped.
Yeah, I remember that I felt like I was coming from the angle of like, let's cast a few people. I remember Ben said, we're not casting a chess club at one point. And I really grasped onto that. And I was like, yeah, like all these people, like they all care so much about Survivor and stuff, but we need a couple people who are just bananas, who are just like great characters. And Lavana and Camila were definitely that. But
Lavana was on, like she was on the cast. Like we left that meeting and she was on the cast. Like I think there was a little discussion, but I think, those last couple spots were mainly like Jessie, Emily B, Camila, Abby. But I think like we talked about Lavana for a little bit. She ended up on, and then, just because of her own choice, she ended up not on the cast. So yeah.
Does anybody have anything else to say about Camila? Because I feel like this is the big one. Like, oh, how come Camila's not there? You know?
I was very pro Camila. I don't know what happened.
I think like she was like, one, she was young, and so we knew she had a lot more time. And two, I think like she didn't have that many connections and people, and she like, got voted out relatively early, so she didn't have time to build all of those. So I think the thought process was a lot of like, we want to have her back, but reach her full potential. And we didn't think with all the characters and All Stars and all the shit show going on, especially being so young, and there's like 4th and 5th years and everyone like going batshit crazy, that like we didn't want to just like toss her in to potentially like be voted out relatively early without having those connections. And then obviously we had Lavana too. So
Yeah, it was definitely a curse of trying to typecast to a certain point, and we thought we had it and we didn't.
Actually, Ben's voicemail had something to do with the subject, so let's play that right now.
One of the only things that I really remember was that one of the like decisions when we were whittling it down from like 25 to 21 was that we ended up not giving it to Camila because I think she like didn't submit a video, or I can't remember what the case was. There was something about like it was like she hadn't put in enough effort as compared to like someone else, and so we gave it to the other person. And now looking at it, I mean, like, Camila is a fan favorite, and I feel like a lot of people would have loved to see her on All Stars. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
So that Ben, it sounds like he had very similar thoughts on that subject to the rest of us. Hindsight's 2020, and I think one thing about these college survivors is it's important to admit your mistakes. I think it was a mistake to not cast Camila. I think we're all on the same page with that. That being said, thinking about it now, like I don't know who I would remove to put, you know what I mean? Like knowing how it all pans out.
Right.
There's nobody who I'm like, I would rather have Camila than this person. I think if I could go back, I would just say, let's just make the cast bigger and include her. But there's nobody on the cast who I would be like, it was a mistake to cast this person over Camila. Cause I think that the cast was basically perfect. The season I think was pretty much as good as you possibly could have asked for. So
I think we did a good job, and we can close out how we eventually decided on the rest of the girls. But I think I stand by the decisions that we made. And again, Camila had more time. So
we had a dope-ass cast. We had a great time. It's a fantastic season.
Yeah. It couldn't have been bigger. Scheduling was a nightmare.
Oh, that's so true.
That like the contestants were so mad at us for casting people. So we had them out there at like 4 a.m. for every challenge. So the only time they were free.
Hours were horrendous.
Okay. So that's the wrap up on Camila and them. So let's go to Emily B, Abby, Sarah Minnis, and Jesse. We're all kind of in contention for these last 2 spots. At this point, Lavana's on the cast. So there's 2 spots left for the girls. It's between Emily B, Abby, Sarah Minnis, and Jesse. So who remembers what was sort of going on with that?
So at least like from what I remember like we kind of put Emily B, Abby, and Sarah kind of like together because it seemed like they would play a similar role and like a similar character. And then we kind of had Jesse in a different box. We were like, Jesse's a little bit different. We're like, she's still like a little quieter like them, but also like has the sass and has like the youth where she will like kind of be carried by people, but then come out and just like be like, what the fuck just happened? And like be a little bit more like do some good ass confessionals in that way. So she like kind of just stood out as like a different character.
I think I was just gonna say, I think between Emily B and Jesse, the 2 people who got it on, like the reason they got on is because they had people who were very strongly like, yes, they should be on. Abby was sort of everybody's like, yeah, she should be on, but it sort of came down to like people had stronger opinions on yes on Emily B or yes on Jesse, and at that point too, I think it was because of those 2 that we ended up at 21. We originally thought 20. Originally, we thought like Lavana and Dylan as a twist, and maybe
so
20 people.
Explain what that twist
So I
is.
think at some point during the meeting, we had Lavana and Dylan, because they were both like contentious, and we're like, what's a cool way we can involve them? And we were inspired a little bit by Survivor Maryland. So I think we were thinking, Lavana and Dylan come in week 3, they have safety for 2 weeks, and then that's the thing where everybody has to decide on Lavana or Dylan. They keep one of them in the game, the other leaves. And then I think at some point we realized maybe we just, maybe that's too much. Maybe we just, cast Lavana straight up and have a cast of 21. And then it was sort of like, let's figure it out later if we want to do Dylan as a twist. And it's a maybe. And then once Lavana dropped, we put Dylan on full 21.
That's how it went.
You're right. Yeah. It was how it is listed right here is it's 21 without Dylan. And it would have been
correct.
It was just going to be straight up Lavana was on. So it would have been 11 girls and 10 guys at that point.
Yeah,
But
and
then-
that's what we left the casting meeting with. Then Lavana dropped. We're like, all right, now we know what to do with Dylan. We thought we might have to have him as a twist or not cast him, but now we'll just put him in the cast
You're
21
right.
and we're set.
Yeah.
Do you remember how exactly that twist was going to work? Just out of curiosity.
It was going to be something where like if it was
You don't
both of them.
flush it out.
Yeah. Okay. We don't need to.
Well,
I know, I think
I
it's
just-
it would have been
interesting.
pretty good.
I think it's
No,
interesting.
sorry. I meant like we didn't fully flush it out at
Right.
casting
The
meeting.
rough idea. It wasn't
Yeah.
approved. The initial pitch that I had given out was basically like they come in week 2 or week 3. Then they have safety for 2 weeks, and then it's sort of a thing where everybody votes on do we want Dylan or Lavana in. So only one of them ends up really being in, and they sort of have to like the weeks that they are in, they have to campaign and get votes to keep them or something like that. So it was going to be sort of interesting, but it ended up being fine. We didn't want to make it too twisty.
Yeah.
So.
And I remember like when this conversation was happening, I was like my thought process was like bring them in as like coaches or something like that to show face, get like a little cameo for both of them, get their time in. And then, but like not have them on. So like there are definitely like discussions for a lot of it stuff.
I'm glad we went with it the way we did because Lavana and Dylan also aren't like, it doesn't make sense to have the two of them.
It wouldn't make sense
as,
to,
like,
like
a thing.
Dylan as a
too
winner,
different.
yes. And I think that's where a lot of the debate came from with whether to have that twist or not, because it would be like, okay, well, Dylan, sure, he's a winner, but why Lavana?
Big character. She's
Like,
Lavana,
It
basically.
was going to be, we wanted her to be included in some way.
Exactly. So to kind of bring it back to where we were at, we cast Lavana after also deciding on Jesse and Emily B to make the
Yeah.
cast of 21 because we couldn't decide. And thinking there
Between
was
Jesse and
this
Emily
twist.
B, we couldn't decide.
I think it was
don't
we
know.
knew Lavana. I think at some point we just ended up like, oh, here's something that we could do. Lavana on the cast and Jesse and Emily B and just do 21. And then we're like, okay, that works.
And so then, but plus, and then Dylan would have been a twist.
It was
by
sort of
himself
it was
as
honestly a
22.
thing where he was probably gonna be a twist, but we like the meeting had been going on for so long that we were just like, all right, we'll figure it out later. But let's tell Dylan he'll probably be on. And then like 2 days later,
Yeah.
Lavana dropped and we just told Dylan, yeah, you're on. So
Yeah, so he just got Lavana's spot basically is what happened.
basically, yeah.
So we should go a little more, I think, though, into like why did Abby
not
and Sarah
Abby.
Menace not get cast?
Yeah. I think to go back to what Brady was saying earlier, how we kind of put Emily B, Abby, and Sarah Menace in a similar group in terms of similar type gameplay. They were on the quieter end in their seasons. And actually, I think there was a moment too that we kind of saw Abby and Jesse as similar because
That's
Abby
what I was gonna say.
Abby
Yeah.
definitely had her moments of feistiness behind the scenes, but not so much in person during challenges or tribals. And in all honesty, I think, like Matthew said earlier, it did just come down to who had stronger opinions on which people should be on there. I think I personally really wanted Jesse on. I don't feel like there was as much discussion around Jesse versus the last spot between Emily B, Abby, and Sarah Menace.
Well,
Because
I
think
remember that
we're all very like strong Jesse that we want.
Yeah.
I remember at one point Abby was on, and then and then a later vote she was off. And so
Yeah, that did happen.
And I think a lot of it also, in terms of I think part of it was looking at numbers and number of people from season 2 versus number of people from season 3 that we had already cast, with so many people from season 2 and less people from season 3. That was also a reasoning that people might have put into their head of like, okay, we should have like Jesse or Emily B or one of these season 3 people versus another season 2.
Ultimately, there ended up being more season 3 people than season 2 people. But I remember that there was a big point that like the season 3 people, everybody knew we're not going to work together. There's almost no scenario where they were all going to work together versus people were kind of like, you could sort of see all the season 2 people just straight teaming up. And we didn't want there to be too large of a block that could do that. So there was less concern about having more season 3 people because it was like, these people all hate each other. They're just not going to team up.
Accurate.
And I know one of like Abby's things was that she like really didn't like season 3 or like the season 3 people, and like definitely was stuck with season 3 people. So like that, yeah, it just tracked and we wanted like more chaos. And like I know Austin was like want Emily B, the Savu Savu
Yeah, I was team Emily B too. She really expressed like a strong interest between like season 3 and season 5 of like she really wanted a second chance, and I was like, we need somebody who's like just really wants the chance and sort of like learn from her game and stuff like that. So I think I was in that like Emily B on camp too. So
she was also another person that got horribly screwed by a twist their original season, and so it was like it felt like they really deserved another shot at it because it was so unfair what happened to her the first time around. I feel like.
Yeah.
Sarah Minnis, does anyone have
she had a very good application. I think she was somebody like after season 3, you didn't like immediately think like, yeah, she'd be an all-stars, but her application was very good. And she definitely like got herself into the conversation.
She was another person also who I think had a lot of years left ahead of her still, right?
I think Emily B might have been a little more involved with production post season 3 than Sarah Minnis was. And that could have also been a reason.
That's definitely true, probably.
The scales weighed a little more in favor of Emily B.
Emily B definitely was around a lot and definitely had played the game well with production, which was certainly part of it.
Unfortunately, you got to play the social game outside of the game.
The game, the All-Stars game begins the moment you're voted off your first season. Like really, the game truly began the moment people got voted off the first time. And this is just the part we're televising.
I remember Crouch told me in season 4, I don't know how many he ended up doing, but he's like, I want to do as many confessionals with people as possible because I don't know how many of them are going to be on All-Stars. So I was like, that's the guy who's planning his All-Stars game. So
he was planning from the minute, the second he drew that rock.
Yeah. And Cooper has admitted similar stuff.
I mean, even with like this, like I know I wanted to be host after season 3, so I like started like hosting the drinking games and shit like that, and like mentioning it, like getting in people's heads. So like, gotta play the game.
So ultimately, it ended up that we were just gonna have Lavana, Emily B, and who else? Who was it? 3 and Jesse all were in, and Dylan was gonna come in as a twist. Lavana drops out, so now it's just a cast of 21. And we've now gone from, I guess originally it would have been even then, 11 girls, 11 guys with Dylan, to now it's just 11 guys, 10 girls. So that's the reason it's lopsided. The goal was to have it be even, obviously. It just didn't really work out.
And I mean, yeah, it was a strong application pool. We clearly had so many different which ways that we could have and wanted the cast to go, but obviously had to end it after however many hours, 4 plus 5 plus hours of discussion. And I think we did a great job, honestly.
Okay, so now let's just answer a few of these other questions that people submitted asking various stuff. One person said, where's George? George long gone, man. George
graduated after season 1.
George long gone.
He's never coming back.
George is long gone. Was Claire from Big Brother involved at all in All Stars, our other co-creator?
Nope. She also dipped after season 1.
They were both, flew the coop.
They were both seniors when season 1 was filmed, so it was very fitting that it was kind of passed down to Matthew, Cooper, and such.
Austin Trupp famously took an extra semester to produce Maryland All-Stars. Did anybody on our cast or production do that? A few people actually did, right?
Not to play, not because of All-Stars, but I know Sam he was doing an extra semester.
He had chemistry left. He had like one
I think he sort of did just for All-Stars.
Yeah.
It was a factor.
He was definitely he was planning to stay that following year, no matter what.
And Sarah, what was her
doing a master's, I think, in public health or something like that. Like she had graduated and then she wasn't around for seasons 3 and 4 that year. And then she came back to do a master's and was able to do All-Stars. So it worked out.
Is it possible we could see other people from the first 4 seasons on a future season? Don't know.
Who's to say?
Don't know. But until you graduate, it's never the end. And I think we talked about how some people were pretty young when they applied to this one. So who's to say? Who's to say? You have to keep watching.
Like Gallagher, you could graduate, still come back and play. Who knows?
You never
know. Definitely will not be the last Michigan season with returnees. So
no.
Yeah. Was it a concern that Cooper would have too much of an advantage from hosting?
I mean, it wasn't a question or a concern in terms of whether he should be cast or not, if that's what they're getting at. But in terms of people being afraid of him as a player, I think, you know, there's also the flip side of the coin where, okay, he was also the host. Everyone kind of knows him and knows what he would be like, has heard stories, watched his season, all of that sort of stuff. I don't think it was too much of an advantage or disadvantage.
I think it's just a different role he had to play. Like, he knows everyone knows him and knows the game and knows like how much they should be able to trust him, and he can use that to his advantage or disadvantage. I mean, like, it's all what he does with it. It wasn't like necessarily like a giant advantage or anything.
What was the thought process behind releasing the cast together as opposed to one at a time? I know that a lot of the other people in production sort of wanted to do it one at a time. The main reason I didn't want to do that was because, number one, I was really worried that people would be expecting some like really huge reveal at the end, that you'd be like building up to like bigger and bigger players. And I didn't want there to be like a level of disappointment about there not being like Liz, you know, or like some of those Thal, Maggie, some of those like bigger names who like couldn't come back, obviously, because of graduation. So I didn't really want to do that. And I also just really had it in my head to use that particular music. And I just wanted to do just revealing everybody. I just thought that was the most fun way to do it.
It was good.
And I think also I'll note, in terms of All Stars marketing, editing, marketing, full on production, post filming, Ian's really kind of taken the reins. He has this vision. This is a project by Ian David Harris that we all contributed to. But just to also say, like, Ian had a certain vision for the cast reveal. Marketing helped him out, and it went swimmingly.
We made him wait long enough too. Like we kind of owed him. So.
Oh yeah. It was like we've teased this out for so long.
Yeah.
That who came up with the silhouettes and the season title? I think, Matthew, didn't you come up with the Revenge Tour name?
I thought you did.
Oh, I definitely did not.
Because I mean, if people don't know, it's because I think during. Yeah, well, wait, because Michigan,
it would have been
Michigan
the year
football,
before that. Yeah,
right. The fall before that, Michigan football like coined their season the Revenge Tour, even though they lost to Ohio State that year, and didn't complete the Revenge Tour. But the name fit perfectly, just in terms of football and in terms of like, this is such a good name for an All-Star season.
And I think the silhouettes idea, I don't know, Ian, if that was you or more Maggie.
That was Maggie.
Okay, yeah, Maggie kind of created it in terms of Ian having a vision for how things should be released. Maggie also has a vision of how it all could look, and kind of like tying the themes and the marketing aspects all together. So the silhouette idea came from a very strong marketing team member, aka Maggie.
Yeah, she's done a lot of the posters and stuff. It's been super, super good with that. Who had the best application video?
Who?
Yeah, Cooper's was scary. Cooper's
was terrifying, dude.
He was like, he said like, I'm gonna be buying body bags and bullshit. I'm gonna drag people across the diag. And I was like, holy shit.
I remember he was like, no one else who's applying for this combined like deserves it as much as I do, or something along those lines.
It was just filled with like the most, it was dramatic, it was epic, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, how cool. But
I also have a soft spot for Jackson's and also for Jesse's as well. I remember Jesse's being really funny. And I remember Jackson's, the thing he said in the trailer about you can't rush perfection. He was talking about his application. He's like, I know you're all waiting for my application. Where is it? When is it coming in? But you can't rush perfection. And I am perfection. And this application is perfect. And I'm going to play a perfect game. And I was just like, this dude is fucking wild. I think he took after you, Brady, in his confessionals this season.
It was shirtless.
Got to.
Not complaining.
What could you have done to have a more diverse cast? Many people have noticed this cast is as white as these walls. So
yeah, I think a general statement that we always say when this sort of question comes up to any season that we've had is we can only cast who applies. And in addition to that, that's also part of the reason we were fighting so hard for Lavana or Camila, was to have a little more diversity.
Yeah, but then I guess the question would be, why didn't you cast both of them if that was in consideration,
Yeah. So
It wasn't our choice not to cast Lavana, but
yeah, exactly.
But
like we have
I think
Lavana
the argument
cast.
would be you could have cast both of them, but
yeah.
I think the other thing is honestly the original seasons weren't particularly diverse.
Yeah.
And I know they've made much more of an effort to do that now than we did at the time. And I think that's something it's something that wasn't thought about a ton when the original seasons were cast, probably.
Not originally. I do think as a few seasons, it was definitely a topic of conversation during season 4 casting.
Yeah.
And I think when it came to All Stars, just because we already knew the pool of people that we had to choose from, it wasn't as much of a discussion because there wasn't as much. I mean, obviously, like Ian just said, there wasn't as much diversity to choose from, but it's always something that like current production has been working on.
Can we see the application videos? So actually the plan is to eventually release them closer to when All Stars is actually about to come out. I think similar to if we had done a cast reveal, like similar in the previous seasons, we've done like Instagram posts and stuff. I think this time along with that, we might just release people's application videos because the vast majority of them are really, really funny. So yeah.
So definitely. We definitely should have bonus material for this season.
We got so much content.
Oh my
There's
God.
so much pregame material that's definitely not going to be
closer to the release date. We might do another podcast just about pregame, cast preview everything that happened.
I'm comfortable saying I'm seriously considering / sort of want to do an episode 0 that will come out like after the season maybe or something, because it doesn't really make sense to come before. That would just be because people filmed so much pregame footage. It's like none of it really impacts almost none of it impacts the actual game, but it'd still be, especially after you've seen the season, it'd be so ironic to see some of the people who like were meeting up and like thought they were going to be best buds, but then like instantly became enemies or vice versa. Like just how much people thought they like had it all planned out and how little of it went according to plan. I think that'd be really funny, but
like we mentioned earlier, like it was in people's minds for months, years, like always. I remember like right after like casting, like I was hanging out with like a group of like a bunch of people, and like someone just handed me a phone. They were just like, "Film us. This is like pregame confessional."
It happened a lot over the summer before All Stars. It was
constant. There's a bunch of footage from the season 4 after party of people talking about All Stars. And so if this episode 0 ever happens, it'll start the night of the season 4 finale, or it'll be like day -150 and show people at the after party talking about how they're gonna win All Stars and then like go through the summer and shit. I think it'd be hilarious. But
we're gonna like have to dig into our fucking like Snapchat memories and pull out like those 3 a.m. party videos and just put them in.
It's interesting because I've seen like with Winners at War and some other stuff, people like Survivor fans get really annoyed if they think that like pre-gaming is happening and stuff. Like I've seen that be a criticism of Big Brother seasons and things like that. But with this college Survivor, it's completely inevitable. Like every interaction, interaction they ever had was pre-gaming. Everything was the pre-game for this game.
And I mean, I think the joy of it is that like we don't give them tribes immediately when we get them casting. And obviously then people have in their heads like we're gonna have this many tribes with this many people and with these people that we can vote out. Like you can't go that far. It's all just about building relationships and connections. So like that's
people thought John Mish was playing. Yeah.
Like so they can only go so far in even pre-gaming that like it doesn't really matter. It's just about relationships. It's funny to watch.
Who else was on production for the season that people would know?
I think we mentioned Austin, Ben,
Shannon.
Shannon.
Richard. Richard and Sarah both joined production after they weren't cast. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's also a decent number of alums who were in the group chats and stuff who like wanted to like know what was going on and be involved, who were like quote unquote on production, but like they weren't really, but they sort of were.
Like Jack Tiggleman, Sarah Z,
Dale.
Dale was really involved in the chats. And it got to a point, I think they definitely tried to weigh in on different production decisions that were discussed in the chats, but they weren't necessarily present helping to film or anything.
I remember Elisa came in a little bit too.
Oh
she
yeah,
was
yeah. Elisa too. There was a bunch of people in the chats and stuff.
Yeah. Like the core production was really small though, because most of production played. So it was like all the people that were normally in production were suddenly playing. And then there was like 5 of us left that were like the actual people there every day.
Somebody sent a really weird question, said, "Call me crazy, but that looks like Abby at minute 319 in the trailer." You must be crazy because we spent an hour talking about how Abby wasn't cast, so I don't really know why would she be in the trailer?
Why would Abby be in?
You must be. It's this sounds like some fake news or something. I don't know. It doesn't really make any sense to me.
Someone probably photoshopped it on, honestly.
Not even our trailer, but let's be real here. Who knows?
Yeah, I was part of the trailer for a different college survivor. There's a lot of Abby's out there, you know. It's not to say it was simply ours. You guys didn't see her in that trailer, right?
I did not.
Personally, no, I did not.
Played the 5th. I don't.
Yeah. Did anybody surprise you that they wanted to come back? They didn't expect.
I did not think Leia was not a part of production for seasons 2, 3, or 4. So I was very pleasantly surprised when I heard she wanted to play.
Leia refused to even discuss or say the name Survivor after season 1.
But you knew she was gonna play.
She always knew. Yeah. I think Jessie kind of surprised me. Some of the quieter characters like Sarah Minnis, Emily B.
Sarah Gallagher was the big one for me. I just never expected her to be around.
I think Abby was a little bit of a surprise too, because I know she was like on the edge and then was like said she wasn't, but then did. So at least like to me she was.
Would Eliza, Ben, Jack, or Matthew have been allowed to play a third time?
Eliza, Ben, and Jack, no. Matthew, probably yes. No.
What?
Who do you most want to have back who was like graduated, who was logistically unfeasible? Like if everyone could pick one person, maybe.
Oh my God, only one? I mean,
yeah.
Probably Sarah Z.
Oh, Sarah Z. I was gonna say any of season 1, like Liz, Thal, Tarowski, for sure.
It's very hard to choose.
I met Liz like one time and she was dope, and then we like bonded over getting the same spot. And I was just like, she should come back. She seems awesome.
Yeah, Maggie too. Yeah, would have been. Yeah, I still have a dream that one day we'll do an alumni season, like, and those people will get to play. Like, it's probably logistically never going to happen.
That would be
like,
insane.
Don't
close
nuts,
the door
dude.
on it. Yeah.
Here's my absolutely fiery hot take, which most people out there will probably disagree with, is that I think All Stars would be maybe not worse, but I don't think it would have been better if all of those people were on instead of if it was like all of those
some of the last cuts like made the season really good.
Mainly because I think that a lot of those people, as amazing as they were and stuff, like I can't imagine like a more interesting ending for like Liz, Thal, and Tarowski than what's already gone down for them.
That's true.
And a similar thing with Sarah Z. Like she pretty much ran the whole show and then just couldn't get it done at the very last second, you know? Versus like a lot of the people on this cast, it was like they had so much more to say. They had so much more story to tell, you know? And there was
I was gonna say even Dylan like had something to prove just in terms of the fact that like his win wasn't a fluke, like he was a more strategic player, like, you know, everybody had something that they kind of wanted to prove.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And so maybe it's a hot take, but I think it worked out beautifully.
It was very high stakes for everyone.
Yeah.
I think it's important to address that like every single person who applied to this and who got into this wanted this more than like anything. Like it's impossible to explain the seriousness with which people took this. This was life or death. It was almost beyond life or death. You know, it was kind of crazy. There's really no other way of putting it.
It made a great season.
And anyone who's like been around college Survivor players, like, you know, we are the most competitive motherfuckers in the world. And then you take the most competitive of us and throw us in a season. Like, you get a bunch of us in a room and all of a sudden, like, we're competing in every little thing and like vehemently. Like, you should see like people play Catan, like it goes to like death blows. Like, it is crazy.
And people have been waiting years in some cases, you know, like they've been dreaming about this ever since they got voted out the first time. They're not going to let it go wrong this time.
It's just like dawning on me. We've been talking how long about a college club and we're like, everyone, it's blood, sweat, and tears. Like
It was.
but
I
it
can think
was,
of
which is
literal blood that was
which is so like it's amazing that we at this young of an age could be so passionate about something, but also like it's also like absolute insanity, and I love every bit of it.
No one will
Argue with
ever
that.
understand it. Like I've experienced
Yeah.
speaking to so many people, and they're like, "Oh, like that sounds cool." I'm like, "No, you don't fucking understand." Like,
I have so many friends and like members of my like immediate family who are like, why are you still doing this? Like, why are you working on a college? Why are you working on a college club like years later? I try to explain that like the logistics of it. There's no way we could have ever gotten it all the seasons done when we were in college, you know, but like it's impossible for anyone to understand unless they're in it. And even the degree to which we're describing it, the players were even, you know, a level far beyond that. Does anyone have any last things they want to say about just all-stars in general, or what's
The season? It's a good season.
It's a crazy one.
Yeah.
It is the most emotional thing that you will see in a college Survivor right now, I think.
I know I tweeted this, but I stand by it. Best season of Survivor Michigan for any of these viewers to see. Yeah.
Brady, got anything?
I just think it's great. Yeah, I mean, else said, like it is chaos from start to finish. Like production had no idea what was happening like half the fucking time. Everyone in the cast is amazing. They did a great job, played their hearts out, and it is like a full semester that like will be remembered for forever for so many people. So go watch it. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, I said this before, but I pretty much agreed to do seasons 3 and 4 exist because of All Stars, basically. Like if All Stars had not been good, or like it's a lot of work doing these, you know, editing them. And I think if All Stars hadn't been good, I probably wouldn't have really I wouldn't have wanted to do seasons. It wouldn't have happened. But legit, even though season 3 and 4 were amazing seasons in their own right, I wasn't really super involved with those ones. But I was like, if we don't make those, we can't do this. And this one has to come out. It has to be seen. There's really no other way of putting it. You can't script this crazy shit that happens in this. I couldn't have written it better myself. It's absolute madness. It's just, it makes everything else look like child's play, honestly. And there's really like, it makes the gameplay in the previous seasons look like nothing. It looks like absolutely nothing compared to the schemes within schemes people had this time around. So I can't wait for it to come out. And I just need to finish it. There's a lot of work left, but
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Are we good? I think we're good.
I think so.
Yeah, should we do like some sort of sign off or something? I don't know.
I'm off from the cold wearing the same shirt.
Yeah. If you did really well in the casting thing, you probably just won this t-shirt. So
Yep,
good for you.
I sent the email, so yeah. They know who they are.
Go watch All Stars. Okay, bye.
It's good.
Yep.
Hope rewatch 1 through 4 and then wait a little bit for All Stars, but be patient.
Yeah. So hope you enjoyed this podcast. Hope we answered all of your burning questions, and stay tuned because there's a lot of craziness still to come.